Halloween! Welcome to the 3M Affairs Halloween Special. I'm your host, Caleb John Cushing. Joining me are my two co-hosts, Josh Sturr and Brandon Kyle McPherson.
What's up? What's up?
Good morning.
And we are joined by a very special guest. He is an actor. He's a writer. An academic. My co-worker at Film Review Daily, Mr. Chad Kennerk.
Woo!
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thank you for being here.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Been too long.
Happy to. It has been too long.
For the audience, Chad went to school with all of us as well. He was in our cohort and graduated in May of 2019 with us.
The last time
Fellow
we were all
MFAer.
truly happy. Yeah, this is 4 MFAers now.
Forum Affairs podcast for Halloween.
Which I guess technically when we had Marlon on, it was 4 MFAers as well, and we didn't bring it up. So now we have to go and redo that whole thing. Sorry, Marlon.
That's what happens. We
Poor Marlon.
Yeah, really. Chad, what's been going on? Tell the world about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, so I love celebrating classic film actors and highlighting their legacies. So I work with a couple different families and, like you mentioned, Caleb, write some film reviews for Film Review Daily. And October is always a busy month because I am lucky to be a part of Vincent Price's legacy. A lot of people know him from Thriller and being the voiceover for that, or as the voice of Ratigan in The Great Mouse Detective. I feel like our generation knows one or both of those.
Very underrated movie.
But he was actually so true. Very true. He had a long legacy, though, and was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1911. And he's actually the third Vincent Price. His dad was head of the National Candy Company, and his grandfather invented baking powder, of all things. So they have kind of this culinary legacy, which is really interesting.
That makes sense.
That makes sense because he's such a fucking snack.
Possibly some family money there too, maybe. I don't know if you invented baking powder.
That's so insane to think that he invented like the thing everybody uses for every meal. That's fucking crazy.
Right? Yeah. So when he was born, his family was very well off, but they sort of went through this cycle of doing very well and then losing everything or losing lots of money. So it's kind of an interesting thing that carried over into his life and his career. And later in life, he was making, lots of commercials and doing lots of things that maybe someone of his stature wouldn't normally do, but he was always concerned about money, actually.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, I think. I mean, that's the American dream, right? You make a lot of money and then you lose a lot of money and then you make a lot of money. That's so interesting that he came from like a legacy of wealth. I mean, like we see that a lot today, like most people at the level of those, the heights they reach, come from some sort of financial stability.
Unlike today, I was just going to say, unlike today, actors of that generation also got that one paycheck and then never got any royalties after that.
Oh my God.
So that's one of the big things with like classic film actors. They have this huge, rich legacy of all of these films that people know and love, but the estate and the family doesn't really see that in the way that actors get royalties and things today.
We also see a larger resume because they had to keep working to get.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now that he would continue to make just garbage for decades.
He's not getting his like 20 mil a year for Friends. It's so different then and now.
That's so funny.
Right. Like the Friends crew can pick exactly only the things that they want to do for the rest of their lives because they're sitting around getting $20 million a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no residuals.
Yeah, it's wild.
And Vincent Price died in 93, so he didn't see Friends happen. So at least he wasn't... But I wonder what he would have thought just at the fact that David Schwimmer was going to be like more wealthy than him forever. That's so interesting.
Well, yeah, even with Thriller, he got paid like chump change for Thriller, and when that exploded, never saw a dime from that. And,
damn,
that obviously has gone on to become such a huge success.
Well, what's funny?
I guess those kids weren't the only ones getting fucked by Michael Jackson.
Oh,
Am I
wow.
right?
Happy Halloween for everybody.
Chad, welcome to the podcast.
We can cut that. I'm sorry. I couldn't help
We will
myself.
not be cutting that.
Now we know
Josh,
who Caleb
don't
really
cut
is.
that.
No, I'm just kidding.
In fact, clip that.
That's going viral. Sorry, Chad.
Yeah.
That's welcome to the Thunderdome, baby.
What? That's interesting because I actually just Ryan and I just got done talking like a couple weeks ago just about Robin Williams and how much he got paid for Aladdin
Yeah,
for
he got
the
fucked
genie,
by
and he got
Disney.
completely fucked by Disney. Of like they wouldn't pay him his equal share of like you're using literally my image and my voice.
It's not
and
only
everything
that,
you know?
but he also like specifically requested that they don't use his likeness to advertise. And then they were like,
Yeah.
well, fuck you, we're doing it anyway. And that's
Yeah.
why he like was very
He
vocally
was-
anti-Disney and anti-Katzenberg.
She was like specifically was like, please do not put my name on the poster. I want to make this movie for my kids and all the other kids, and I want there to be a disconnect. And then they were like, sure. And the marketing came out, and it's just Robin Williams,
Robin Williams
as the
is.
genie, and
Exactly.
just fucking everywhere. Yeah, it's greasy.
This
greasy
summer,
meat.
Robin Williams is a character who does impressions of people who don't exist yet from far in the future. But yeah, Chad, that's super interesting. I kind of want to, if it's okay, pull back just a little bit. I'm so curious how you get involved with all these estates. Like, I would love to know how you like looked for those jobs, got those jobs, and what it's like to work. Because it's not just Vincent Price; it's like lots of other people too that you work for, right?
Well, I just saw a post too, Chad, that someone had passed that you were working with or had known or had a connection networking with.
Yeah, Clark. I was talking a little bit with Clark Middleton. He's a great character actor and has done lots of Broadway and film, and I was sad to see him pass away. But really, it's just my love of classic film and kind of doing a little research and figuring out, who is in charge of the estate and seeing if I can help. And it's really just starting a conversation that way. Yeah.
So it's like very organic, and you just like being a fucking hard worker. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, everything
that lines up.
Everything that I'm doing now is basically just come as a result of years of just helping out and seeing what I can do because I'm passionate about continuing, a legacy for all the actors that came before us that kind of walked the path and left us a great body of work.
I've really always admired that quality about you. When we were at school, because we have like Inside the Actors Studio, right? Which is like, that's supposed to be the school doing that for us to get us into contact with these people. And like, I'm only going to speak for myself. Like, I definitely enjoyed having that experience to go, but like, you could tell by the time we got there, it was less like, let's look and talk to these amazing artists. And then it's more like, okay, who's got something to promote? Like, it's just another talk show. And so you went out on your own and was like, I'm going to get Frank Oz to come to this school and talk about being fucking Frank Oz. And I just thought that was so cool because I mean, unless I'm wrong, I feel like nobody asked you to do that. You just did it. And that's so great.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. I did kind of just do that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
though.
Own it.
Well,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because he's the man. He's
Also,
Yoda.
did you get any resistance towards that from the school or anything?
So I didn't really involve. I did it kind of separately from the Actors Studio. They Schimmel used to have Schimmel Presents series, and they always did a big Halloween event for the undergraduate students, and they were screening the director's cut of Little Shop of Horrors. Which is the better version, by the way.
Yeah.
It has this whole sequence at the end where the plants just destroy everything. But I had been connected with Frank's son, and he was actually getting his degree at Yale at the same time. And I was like, oh, this would be great. How cool would it be for Frank to come in and talk about the film? It's the Schimmel is such a great theater and
really
venue.
Is a good space, yeah.
So I just thought I'd give it a shot, and then miraculously it all came together. They loved the idea because they were selling tickets for outside of pace to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
So we pretty much, sold out the 500 seats. So that was really
That's
awesome.
great.
Yeah. But a little surreal. I mean, I feel like the experience we had just in the program and in New York, when you're sitting next to Frank Oz watching his baby, like really his solo directorial debut, you just are kind of like, what? Where am I? What's happening?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's definitely I'd say almost like a couple of handfuls of those moments from our time at school that you just like look back and you're like, wait, what? Like, obviously Bradley Cooper when he came in, that was a very different experience.
Watching our
It
friend
wasn't
give
Actor Studio.
Bradley Cooper a bag of rocks really like cemented like, oh, is this real life for me?
Yeah, just like, what is going on? There's definitely a handful of those moments.
Yeah, very surreal.
What is your what's your experience with like meeting these actors or meeting these people who like we only know in name? You said really,
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like the school and getting like that, figured out. Is it like also trying to contact the Frank, and being like, hey, would you be willing to do this? Has there any in your experience in terms of trying to reach out to people and network and get involved? Has there been any pushback or any? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like no, not really. It's interesting because I feel like directors or people who are huge sources of all the things we love in the industry, but are maybe not as much in the spotlight as an Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot more accessible, I think, than people realize, especially in New York. I feel like New York is a place where you're able to network in a way that you really can't anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Just because it's such a small community and someone usually knows someone else. But I think the biggest thing is just having a project that you're in it for just the sake of the project itself, and it has a lot of heart behind it. And if it's something that they see that in you and in the project, that they're much more willing to have a conversation, and you can, start a conversation that way. I mean, there's lots of projects I've tried that haven't gone anywhere too. It's just the ones that do are so cool when that door actually does open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's true because it is a massive door when it opens, right? And then you're in with that person, and it's a relationship.
Yeah,
which is
but of course amazing. Now we got to know. I mean, biggest bummer.
Yeah. So I tried. So after the Little Shop of Horrors event, I had a connection with Tina Fey, and I was trying to set something up for the next Halloween because of Mean Girls being on Broadway October 3rd and all that stuff. And it was the anniversary of the film. So I was like, there's lots of things lining up. There's lots of things lining up here. Wouldn't it be cool if we were able to do a screening of that, have her come, maybe some of the cast from either the film or the Broadway show come and talk about what they do. And, so that didn't happen, but,
that would have been
they
cool,
ended up doing, yeah, I know. They ended up doing some other really cool stuff and fundraisers and things. So, yeah.
Tina was like, I'm good. Sorry. I got to go keep rewatching 30 Rock.
Yeah, it's crazy because I don't even know that it was so much Tina as like all of the, every Broadway show is such a big conglomerate of people and producers and everything. So when you have a film that's turned into a stage show, that property then takes this whole other aspect of like the marketing and publicity around that show. And how is this event that's related to the film going to affect, and what else is being done, and the competition of multiple events. And so it just becomes this huge uphill battle.
But I think at that time too, they were talking about doing like another Mean Girls movie because like the show, like the Broadway show, seemed like it was going to be so successful as well. So there's like so much, like you're saying, so much stuff going on in the marketing department.
Have you guys not seen Mean Girls too?
No, but that was before. I think they were talking about doing another one.
But have you seen it?
Because I have seen
dog
it.
shit.
Of course,
it's like one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, sorry.
Is it though?
No, it really is DVD. Awful.
Yeah.
Like I would say it's even worse than The Dark Tower.
Whoa! Right here.
I thought you were gonna say Hottie or the Naughty for sure.
No, it's definitely worse than Hottie and the Naughty, and it might also be worse than Dark Tower. But sorry, Chad. This is a little inside 3MFA's humor. Sorry.
No, that's good.
Chad, what is like? You're working for these estates. You're so much of a hustler and go getter in terms of programming and things like that, and giving back. Like, do you want to ultimately produce? Do you want to, like, I you're an actor, I know you love acting and stuff like that, and you're brilliant. I was very fortunate enough to direct you for your thesis and Breaking of Bread. But like, is there like a kind of an itch that you have for this kind of producer, planner type of role in these organizations and future projects and stuff?
Yeah, I'd love to one day like have my own company where I can kind of manage lots of different estates and make it more of a boutique. There are some big, huge companies that do that, but it's always so impersonal. Like if you look at the Instagrams of those actors that the company is doing, they don't know those actors at all.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'd love to do on a more kind of intimate, personal scale, where I can be really actively engaged and involved. Yeah. But I want to wear all the hats. I've always said that I would love to produce and direct and obviously act and write and, wherever creativity takes me, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's
100%.
Great. And you definitely seem to be a self-motivator, self-starter. I have no doubt that you'll achieve everything that you want at any day now. I think it's awesome, man.
Well, thank you.
Now, let's shift focus to someone else who wore all the hats. Mr. Yeah. So, tell us about the film, Chad.
Yeah, what did you have us watch today? For today?
Yes. So I brought to the table The Masque of the Red Death, which is a 1964 Edgar Allan Poe adaptation by Roger Corman, starring Vincent Price. And it's actually a cycle of Poe films that Roger Corman started. He had the idea in 1960 of doing a cycle of Edgar Allan Poe stories on film. So he started in 1960 with The Fall of the House of Usher, and this is actually the 7th film in the series. He wanted the 7th, yeah.
Wow.
He wanted to do The Masque of the Red Death second, but it was pretty close to, in some of the themes, similar to The Seventh Seal.
Absolutely.
The Seventh Seal, the Ingmar Bergman film. So he decided to do Pit and the Pendulum second, and then came back to it later on, which was actually a huge benefit for the film because Fall of the House of Usher was a huge success. They made that in 15 days on a really tight budget.
Whoa.
And then it made yeah.
So
and then it
made turnaround
really fast. And then it made like $2 million in 1960. So a crazy amount of money in terms of profit for the cost of the film. So by the time they got to the 7th film, they had a little more time, a little bigger budget. The last two were shot at Elstree in England, the studios there, where the first Star Wars was shot. And so everything there was a little more relaxed. They had access to all of the studio's sets that were in their storage, and they were able to pull set pieces that were left over from A Man for All Seasons and Beckett. So they had these huge, like, incredible set pieces that they never would have been able to construct and afford to build in the US, which you can see in this film. I mean, it's such a palatial set.
The set is really one of the things that jumped out to me the most. It was very, very encompassing in the film and setting the tone of the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's straight vibes only.
Yeah.
That is interesting because the Seventh Seal was like the biggest point of reference for me when I was watching it. I was like in concept, in look, like not even just the fact that it's a plague, but like you have, in Seventh Seal, you have him playing chess with personified death, and there's all these people wearing masks that are kind of interacting with the populace. It's obviously set during a time of monarchy. And I also was reminded of, I know that this film came out almost a decade earlier, but I was reminded of Salo a lot. I don't know if you guys have seen Salo, 120 Days of Sodom. It takes place in Italy like with aristocrats just like really torturing and of the peasants. Like, you had Vincent Price kind of like, just, he could just look at somebody and be like, be an animal, or like, he would torture people for fun. And I got some fucking gross vibes from that, but that's a conversation for a different day.
Well, I just speaking of him in it, I find the most interesting part of himself, or even actors at that time, that very specific, not British, but Shakespearean accent that they're doing.
It's like the Mid-Atlantic, right? Or like whatever the...
It's so interesting, and it just is a character in of itself, Well,
I found... Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to say, so in the studio days in, I would say like you're talking 1920s to 1960s, the transatlantic accent was actually taught to actors. And,
so weird.
And then Vincent Price kind of had his own thing, coming from more aristocratic St. Louis. They had this bit of a different accent that kind of sounds British, and he was often called out for that. And he said, I think I sound like Harry S. Truman. I don't.
He's like, I'm not trying to be British. I'm trying to be.
Initial. Vincent Price to me, like it's sort of what you were saying in the beginning, Chad. Like we have limited exposure, like nowadays. I immediately think of Bill Hader on SNL. Like that's like what that's my reference for Vincent Price. But you're right, like the Thriller video, and then Radigan. But he's one of those people that has a very distinct voice and mannerisms. It's almost nasally in a way, and he's got that fucking John Waters mustache. Like he's not. I don't see a character. Like I'm watching Vincent Price, and I'm fully cognizant that I'm watching an actor, but the work that he's doing is still good. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a knock against him. I feel like the draw of this movie is like, watch Vincent Price be a fucking sadist. And then a bunch of fucking crazy psychedelic shit's gonna happen later. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm fully on board.
Yeah. I feel like out of the Poe series, this is definitely one of the most, if not the most sadistic character that he's played within the Poe films. Witchfinder General is probably the most sadistic, creepy character that he played in his career. But he always brings this element of like kind of winking to the camera, of camp, of like we're having fun. We're doing this big gothic story, but we're having fun doing it.
But he's the only one. Like everyone else in that movie is horrified of everything that's going on. And he's like, I will take this crossbow, and like it's just fucking nuts. But he's the man, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Well, I find it interesting. Like our training is so like with like the method in Stanislavski and Strasberg type of stuff. It's so there's such an inner life, and watching the movie from the 60s and knowing this like old Hollywood, I was kind of reminded of that kind of, I wouldn't say manufactured, but it wasn't as deep as like what we're taught now. I feel like there was a lot of like, I could see the screenplay as I was watching this movie. It was very off the page. This is the movie, edit together, and then there you go. And with that, it's like when I say old Hollywood, it is that the liquid hue and like the transatlantic and like the looks and the hair and the costumes and the set pieces. Like I forgot how effective like actual built set pieces are with like painted backdrops, you know, like closed set,
Right.
like here it is. We're going to put a castle on a backdrop and it's, you know, with the voiceover and it's going to look great, you know, and it's, you know, I missed the actual craft of the time and the preparation. Cause a lot of people are either on set or on location or like in an actual apartment. There's still like the set dressing and the prop aspect of the filmmaking that takes a lot of energy, but like in terms of just the classic sense of it's almost theatrical, you know. Like I felt this was very, it was theater, you know, film theater a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
I think it felt that way all the way through, especially with the sets as we were talking about. But what I really enjoyed in that aspect, and it did feel theatery, but it was so well lit all the way through. For a movie that was very dark, it was the lighting was very there, which helped for me at least bring that theatricality up. You know, you can always see Vincent Price's face. He's never shrouded in darkness. You know, even when the aesthetic is dark, everything was really well lit, which is something we don't see these days as much in horror movies. It does get dark and grainy, and I really appreciated that.
Well, it's like in the Black Room when he was like laying down like his demon or vampire self, and just his face is lit, and then it's like
yeah,
and the score.
I thought they did a really good job of that, because that's something that frustrates me in present day horror movies a lot, is that if everything's just dark all the time, like I get it, we're seeing shadows running around, but it's not as
that's an interesting point, Brandon. I feel the reason that is because, you know, if you make it dark, you can't see the shitty computer generated special effects on everything.
No, for sure.
But with this, they don't even try. Like, it's like, yeah, the blood looks kind of fake as shit, but like that's not the point. Like the point isn't to like a 1-to-1 realism. It's like, you know, this is a fucking fucked up masquerade, and they're all dressed up in cool costumes, and we're going to set this guy in a monkey suit on fire, guys. It's going to be lit. Like, it's just so, it's like totally leaning into that aesthetic. Cause it has great costume design. Right. It's got great art direction. And I feel like, it would be a bummer to just have that all just like shrouded in darkness. You'd miss all of that.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The cinematography, Nicholas Roeg,
which was fucking crazy. I almost like, I did a double take when I read that. And that's a great segue too. Yeah. So Roger Corman, who directed this, is, I would say, like kind of the godfather of like indie film in America. He directed hundreds of movies. Like him and his production company churned out like dozens of movies almost every year. Like just like churning them out. And the people who, and I'm sure Chad that you know all this already too, and feel free to jump in whenever, but he had like, you know how like when we have our like showcases, like for school, like it's like, hey, like industry, here's all of our students. So like that wasn't always a thing. And Roger Corman would go to like film schools and headhunt like their best students. Like he started the careers of Coppola, Ron Howard, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, James Cameron. Like, he started the careers of a bunch of actors like Peter Fonda, Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, Sylvester Stallone. Like, he had such an eye and a nose for talent. Nicholas Roeg, who did the cinematography for this, is a fucking amazing director. He did Walkabout, The Man Who Fell to Earth, Don't Look Now. So it's just so crazy that, like, one guy had such an eye for talent and, like, and a passion for cultivating it, that he started the whole independent film movement in America. And we owe a lot to him.
And then he's still kicking. So he had a quarantine film festival where he invited people to make 2-minute movies, and he's
crazy.
awesome.
How old is he now?
He's 94.
Wow.
Yeah, he's up there.
And but he doesn't give a fuck. He's still making shit like Carnosaur versus Robot Octopus. Like he's doing he just does it, and it's great. He's a really important figure in film.
Yeah, he's a legend.
And I think a part of his ability to constantly like make a profit is the fact that he, you know, spends very little on these films, but makes every dollar count, and you can see where that money goes, and then therefore like it makes a lot of money because there's real quality happening on screen.
I mean, even like
exactly.
Yeah.
Even like Chad said before, I mean, they found a lot of those sets, right? Like, they pulled them out of the studio. So we're talking about how impactful that was to the film and the art direction being amazing. Like, they seemingly didn't spend any money on that. They grabbed it from another movie. So like, that is just economically genius.
Yeah, very resourceful. And
no.
That's intelligent. That's a great producer.
Oh yeah. I like. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. We talk about the set and the color, right? Is very vivid. A lot of blues, greens. Like my one of my favorite segments is the yellow room to the purple room, or what was it? Yellow, purple. Oh shit, where did it go? I wrote it down. Yeah, yellow, purple, white, black. Right, and black was where like Satan was or whatever. And the black and the red was great. Did you? Now I didn't do this kind of research, but significance with that, because it also gets brought back. I didn't know if like Chad or Caleb or anybody here had thought about, because thought it was a very unique choice in terms of having those different, because like the yellow room, Prospero says the prisoner left and he couldn't look at daffodils or daisies in the sun because he couldn't take yellow anymore, and the use of color. And so I didn't know if there was any significance to the purple. I know they talk a lot about, Satan and death and lore and like God and religion and things like that throughout this entire movie, So I didn't know if you had any kind of fun tidbits from all your history stuff or kind of the reasoning behind some of these, because they definitely were a choice. I'm just curious as to the actual reasoning behind, if any at all, Yeah,
I haven't revisited the original poem, but I know the poem does walk through the colored room, so I don't know if that order is taken from the poem or if Corman did something different with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty. The way that I understand it is that it like not necessarily the same order, but yeah, that was a callback to the short story or the poem. That's all the different rooms of the castle were all those different colors. And then you see those colors again at the very end with all the different shrouded figures coming out of the woods all of a sudden, which is very Seventh Seal as well.
But that's supposed to be, different versions of death, right? Like that's what I wanted to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, like the Black Plague, Yellow Fever. I'm assuming.
Okay.
That's definitely probably a huge part of it.
Red Death, but I don't know what blue or the other gold character was. I don't know. Like, and I feel a little bad not knowing.
No, I mean, I think that's one of the strengths of the film is that it doesn't spell it all out for you. It leaves things open to interpretation. How much is literal? How much is symbolic or delving into surrealism?
But Chad, I'm a millennial. I need things handed to me and explained, and I would like for movies throughout the ages to do that for me. Thank you.
But I agree. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like I wasn't even sure exactly what kind of deity the red guy was throughout. Is he death? Is he Satan? And you're obviously not supposed to exactly know. They keep you on edge. That conversation comes up where he thinks he's, God or the devil, right? He's like, you're the devil. He's like, I'm not the devil. Or like, what he's like, just like, no.
Well, I think he references it as like master, like his master, right? And there's,
right.
Yeah.
Death doesn't have a master.
So Vincent Price, not Vincent Price, the character, not him in real life. Prospero is a Satanist, and he is under the impression that the red shrouded figure is Satan because, of course he would. And then when he's like, wait, aren't you? And he's like, no, like death has no master or whatever. So yeah, I think he's supposed to be this abstract like representation of the plague or just like of death. Cause that's a big scene is at the end when Vincent Price realizes he miscalculated and spent his whole fucking life being a Satanist and have it fucking backfire in his face.
Right?
Oh man, that would suck,
that would suck.
You think
so
you
bad,
have a plan and then,
Yeah.
And he would have gotten away for it if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
That's right.
One of my favorite moments though has to be like when the village, when one of another kind of aristocratic kind of guy comes and tries to seek refuge from the Red Plague, and he like is so desperate he willingly gives up his wife and just says, "You can do whatever you want with her, I swear." And her look of just like, "Bitch, Get out of here. Like,
but then, yeah, sorry, Freddie,
Vincent Price goes, I already have.
Yeah. Oh, you fool! I already have.
Yeah. It's just like, all right.
And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's fucking nuts. Exactly what you're saying, Chad. It is kind of campy, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like he enjoys being theatrical, like as an actor, and he brings that to every character he plays.
And that's a great way to describe it.
And with Prospero, that kind of savoring it is what elevates that character. You know, it makes it enjoyable to watch, even though it is so creepy, and he's so good at it. And it is like the lines and the things that he's doing is such a level of creepiness and, you know, that weird power dynamic that we're especially aware of these days. It is very
well. It's like his I forget the guy's name who dressed up as the ape dies. And Hop Toad runs away, and he's like, "I'll give him some more gold for his little jest. It was funny. Clean this up. They don't want to dance through this mess." And it's just like, wow,
a prank, bro. It's just a prank.
He was phenomenal, by the way.
The dwarf,
the guy who played Hop Toad, yeah, he was unbelievable. His animal work when he's showing the other guy the gorilla stuff and that whole monologue, I noted that while watching it. It was so well done.
And him and Esmeralda is pulled from a different story, correct? Did I read that right?
Yeah, it's called Hop Frog.
Yeah.
It's like another smaller story that was like how he wove that subplot in. Because like the original thing, like Chad was saying, it's a poem. So like when you're building a screenplay out of it, it's like, oh fuck, we got some extra pages to fill here. How are we gonna do that?
Yeah.
Which I thought
you
it
can't
worked
have
really well.
a one-to-one transfer. You can't have
somehow
the mediums.
It doesn't work. No, I know, it's crazy. But I thought that the decisions he made worked well. I thought it fit in that world. I was a little thrown off because I feel like, and this might have just been me, but I felt like his partner wasn't an actual dwarf. It looked like just a little girl.
No, it was a little girl with a voiceover.
But they were talking about her as if she was an adult and having sex
I made
with her.
that note too. No,
I was
that
like,
was
what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's hard because we have to it's hard, we talk about this a lot in our movie podcast stuff, is that it's hard to look at something 80, 70 years ago and not, or 60 years ago and not through the lens of 2020. And so in 64, 63, that's what they had to do if they couldn't find a dwarf female to play Esmeralda, who's a dancer. You get a child and you dub her, dub her voice or whatever with an older woman.
Just grab any little girl off the street and then.
But it's just it was a little off-putting for me.
Well, no, I think it's supposed to be off-putting. I don't think that they the filmmakers. Well,
the character is a sleaze. The guy who's wanting to corrupt her, he's a bad guy.
I don't think that the filmmakers took advantage of an actual kid. She doesn't do anything bad on screen or anything.
No, she knocks over his wine. And
then they fucking smack her. But then he fucks that guy up. And then that guy gets lit on fire in a gorilla costume later. So
he gets his too.
He gets his comeuppance, Which now that I'm thinking about it is why the dwarf fucked with him. I didn't even connect those dots when I saw it, but he was probably fuck you.
Yeah, the dwarf definitely knew.
Very Tyrion Lannister. I have to use my mind instead of a sword to get revenge on people. And then he just bounced.
But I think that being said, I think that's that creativity, or that's the kind of, when you don't have the technology we have now, it's you gotta do with what you gotta do. You gotta do with what you have.
You gotta be careful though. Gotta be careful. Netflix is getting sued for that. They're getting criminally charged in some state in the States for that movie they put out about kids.
Well, I think that's dumb, but we don't have to talk about that right now. That's a different conversation. I want to talk about it.
I want to ask you, but I don't know what this is. So
there's I haven't seen it, but there's some movie called Cuties that I guess is supposed to be super, 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 super inappropriate and I don't know, but they're getting criminally charged for it it being indecent.
Oh wow!
So what happened? Well, sorry, Chad. Do you want to step in? It looked like you did.
I was just gonna say that the problem was the marketing for the film, because the film is actually denouncing that the sort of sexualizing of young women, but the marketing for the film, what Netflix chose to do with their Netflix version of the poster, was really unfortunate and actually did what the film was speaking out against.
So people are reacting to just what they see and they haven't actually looked into the context.
A lot of people haven't. A lot of people who are decrying the film haven't seen it. The film is a French film that was made by a black woman a black French woman, based on her own experiences of being, sexualized and exploited as a child. So the film has graphic imagery and is designed to kind of bring attention to the fact that we're doing this as a culture to young women across the globe. But people don't think about that and they don't see that. They just see what they're being shown on screen, which is young girls dressed provocatively, twerking, all that stuff, which is definitely not good, but it's designed to kind of elicit a reaction. And from everything that we understand about from the director's mouth and the producers and everybody who worked on that film, every young actress was safe and there was a child psychologist on set. Everything was handled the way that you're the way to do that. And I personally think that it's a little kind of hypocritical given that we're a country that has child beauty pageants and leaves their children to be raised on shit like TikTok and YouTube. I think people go and attack art before they attack the actual systemic problems that are creating
why the art is actually being made. Why?
And if you don't watch a movie, you don't get to have an opinion about it. And also, just because a character doesn't turn to the camera like an episode of fucking Blue's Clues to tell you what you're watching is wrong, that doesn't mean the movie is a commercial for that thing. There's films that depict child torture and murder and death, and nobody has anything to say. It's just fucking completely wrong, and I think that people are it's just fake outrage, and it's Twitter activism, and there's no way that a lawsuit will have any weight in court. And that was
I also don't know what state it is, but I don't think it's one of the.
It's probably a state that has child beauty pageants. So I don't know.
I'm gonna ballpark and say somewhere around Mississippi or Alabama or something.
I'm gonna get in trouble for that. I don't know.
Going back to our.
Sorry, I just wanted to go on that tangent. But
no, please. No, I think these conversations are very important for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting because you have Prospero essentially taking his concubine or taking that what's her name from the village to live in the castle as his special guest.
What is her name?
Francesca.
Ooh, yeah.
Prospero, Francesca, Esmeralda.
And I find it interesting as she's I also love that the dad just was there. The dad really didn't serve
he had 4
anything.
lines, then he fucking died.
But just...
At least he tried.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, no, he absolutely... And the whole poison knife scene was great, even though I'm pretty sure the poison knife was a different color, so they knew not to grab it for the sake of the story.
Is that what was... I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. I was why are we just cutting ourselves in this scene? They were poison.
It was a game.
Knives.
It was a Russian roulette thing. Yeah.
Got it. That went right over my head.
It was explained kind of poorly.
But I find that her Francesca's journey from the defiant I'm a religious person, and he's if you're a religious person, then take off the crucifix or whatever, and then then her being numb after seeing everything that she's been seeing, and that kind of an arc too. But there was definitely those moments at the beginning of like what we said, that old Hollywood, that classic no, not the men, not the 2 guys in my life, and he pushes her away, and she's I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I thought what I found was most interesting was that plot line of the movie was Francesca's very, I thought, quick switch from wholeheartedly believing in God, and Prospero gets in her head. There's that switch that happens, and I thought that was kind of the point of the movie, that it was that easy for him to move somebody who was on the farthest side of this side over to his side like that. Kind of showing that it at that time in this story, it's all kind of nonsense. Well,
they say it's that it's the age old argument between religion and kind of life is the people who are no, what controls the world is war, death, people, but she's what about hope and love and good things? And it's yeah, cool, but that doesn't get things done, and it's that level of, I bastardized the argument, but it's in the general vague sense,
no, just like how you said that.
But what's interesting is the people who actually survive at the end, and what all of those characters sort of their trajectories and the things that they did or didn't stand for. There's so many interesting themes that come up in the film that I feel like are relevant to today. I mean, certainly the pandemic, but just the moral compass of the characters and the whole idea that man creates his own death, and that we're a product of either our circumstances, our beliefs, what we choose to do in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I was helping my brother with a Facebook rant a while back, and it was with a girl he went to school with back in Iowa, and her argument is, if you're healthy, you don't have to wear a mask, and she's contributing to herd immunity, and she doesn't need to, like, don't tell me what to do, and then we're just like, yeah, well, okay, but then you're going to get people sick,
Yeah, okay, but you're a piece of shit.
So it's those things where, like, yeah, I mean, you have your choice, you have your beliefs and stuff, and whatever have you. But when it comes to, like, the Prospero burns the village. He's like, the late old lady dies and then burns the village and takes, I always want to say Esmeralda, but it's not Esmeralda, Francesca. I just like Esmeralda as a name.
Well, Esmeralda is
the dancer. Yeah.
That's actually just a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people, and yeah, you can take either way. And I think movies like this are great because they are that kind of, like, what do you take away from this? And you can have differing opinions about it and have a discussion about it and still be okay. Chad, I'm curious to know, because I saw a couple of things. Were there a lot of other things that I might have missed, references to other, because you said this was the seventh Poe movie in the cycle, because I did notice the clock, the pit and the pendulum, the axe, that was in the background. Hop Toad, was from Hop Frog or whatever, the Esmeralda characters, those characters. Was the ape costume, was that supposed to be like a ploy on, like, the orangutan, like the great ape thing? Like, am I being stupid right now? Like, wasn't that an Edgar Allan Poe short story about an orangutan and the window detective?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, that is Poe, and that's kind of the first, like, detective story. I can't remember.
And then the woman was killed by a raven.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, that was a great death scene, by the way. Ah, so good. So I didn't know if there was anything that you picked up that, other references and stuff that I might have missed.
Super fucked her up.
She was all like, yes, I'm a servant of Satan now. And then a bird just came up and was like, fuck you. You ain't shit.
Yeah. Murders in the Rue Morgue, or I think that's the Poe story about the orangutan. But that's interesting. I don't know that they're necessarily references to the other Poe stories, but there's certainly this theme with time, and there's certain sort of gothic tropes that are all in there that I think carry over to all of the other films. And maybe they were specific nods. I don't know.
I don't know too much of Poe, honestly. I know the Raven, and is he also the cask of Amontillado or Amontillado? Is that him as well? That one where he he gets the guy drunk and paves a wall in front of him to keep him there forever.
Yeah, which actually I believe they used parts of that story for either Pit and the Pendulum or possibly Haunted Palace. But yeah, all of these films are actually taken from these short stories from Poe and then really fleshed out, which is kind of nice because.
Oh no!
It's our very own horror story, one by one. We're all gonna get picked off.
Oh god! If anything happens to me, I love you guys.
He's back,
dude. Are you good?
I don't remember what I was saying. I kept talking and I was like, why is my phone black?
It's a bummer because you were mid thought and I could tell it was going to be we were all on the hook. We were waiting.
There was a good minute just pause of us just
he's really creating a dramatic pause for this. Yeah. It's a pincher pause if I ever saw one.
Like, that's a hell of a beat.
Chad's really milking this beat. But.
Speaking of beats that lasted a little bit too long, the ending for me, I would say the one thing I kind of was like, especially towards the end, was when he was running from himself and the red cloaked figure and all the hands and the screen. He's like, no, and I wish I was on video because I like the hand movement he was doing was great. And then I was a little confused as to like if they all just died at the same time or did he have the control to like lay them down? That I don't know, but I felt like they could have done well with taking away one pass of the room. You know what I mean? Like just do a couple and then have them, because I can't help but like be taken out of something like that as a director or as like a person who like wants things to be more naturalistic, you know? Same thing with him running after the guy in the red cloak, and he has to stop and say, hold on, wait a minute, and then go again. You know, it's like things like that that were a little for me, but it doesn't take away at all from the effect of the movie.
Yeah, it gets very stylistic at times.
What it was.
Yeah.
Which, for me, when I'm watching it, I'm able to chalk that up to just being a part of the times.
Yeah, 100%. You know? Yep.
So it's like, and it's kind of that same thing that we end up going back to a lot when we're watching older movies and talking about on this podcast where, you know, again, this is something that, you know, it's Roger Corman. It was obviously hugely influential to people. So a lot of the stuff we've seen be taken from it, you know, it's the kind of same conversation we had with The Shining, where it was like, I've seen that shot so many times, but this is where it's from originally, so you got to appreciate it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. My favorite sequence was Juliana's acid trip.
Right,
Satan ritual. Corman throws that stuff in every once in a while.
I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts on that and what they took away from that.
I thought it was great. I thought it was like, I mean, you have to imagine in the time period that this story is set, when like this idea of like God and religion has so much more weight than I think it does today overall in like global culture. The idea of like giving yourself over to Satan for eternity that's intense. And this woman is choosing to do that. And however you want to interpret the cause of these visions, I mean, it's really terrifying. Like, placing like in your mind of like this character, like these visions that she's seeing from across like time and space. It seems like going through this like internal like mental rabbit hole of fear and terror, and then to come out the other side like, yes, I am a mistress of Satan. I thought it was like really entertaining and effective. Well,
and if correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, you have the flashes of all the different kind of deities for different kind of like cultures, right? Is that what I'm supposed to take away from the different figures that she saw?
I think so. Yeah.
Throughout, yeah. So it was just kind of like, but then you have the nice filter on it and the wave, you know, and the like the close up on the face and the screaming look, and it's you know, with no sound. You know, I think that's when I talk about, you know, straight off the page and the craft of filmmaking. It's very, you know, it's all those classic techniques you use to have effects, you know, in your movie. You know, although some there are some scenes that looked like I could imagine the director saying action, because there was like no movement before, especially when she's getting thrown into the bathtub. It's like it cuts to the scene and there's like a split second where they're standing still and then being forced, and so just kind of things like that, because whatever footage they had and the film that they had, they spliced it together in a way, you know. I appreciate it 100% of the time, you know. So all the time, I guess, 100% of the time.
99.9.
100% of the time, every time.
What about you, Chad? What do you make?
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if there are any films prior to the Poe series that some of these things are drawn from, but that whole idea of that sort of psychedelic sequence with different colors and, like Josh was saying, open mouths with no screams, and that appears, I know, in Fall of the House of Usher, and I think some of the others as well, in The Terror, which is not an Edgar Allan Poe film, but also directed, I believe, by Corman, and is a very gothic tale of the same kind of experience. So I'd be interested to see what the root of that is, but it's a really interesting style choice.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to keep in mind, like, LSD
That's
is
true.
starting to become a thing in the culture. And so just an anecdote that I love about Roger Corman. So obviously, like, this came out in 1964, and his film The Trip, which is about, like, LSD and people who take it, would not come out for another 3 years. But when he was making that movie, he was like, well, I can't very well make a film about LSD if I don't know what it feels like to be under LSD. So he just like did a bunch of acid, and then like that was like, it's just like a fucking funny guy. But yeah, I imagine that like if you go back through his filmography, he's always kind of been like throwing visually experimental sequences in like that. I can't speak for like the timeline or where the genesis of it was, but he seemed like he was always interested in kind of like bringing a character's internal psychology, like externalize like what we see on the screen. Right. And I think that's definitely
he does a lot of
here.
Visually interesting things with the camera in this film to try to create that.
Yeah. There's some good tracking shots.
Yes.
I mean, that's Nicholas Roeg too. You got to imagine like getting him to be the cinematographer. That's huge. I actually really liked, Josh, the whole sequence of the masquerade, like how it like weaves in and out through all the people, and you're watching him run around, and he's doing like the Vincent Price, like
Well, that's not to take away from like the actual like the dance itself. The dance of the Red Death like was beautiful and really cool and eerie and things like that. When he was changing, I'm forever gonna be using a fabric to cover the screen to then do
a reveal,
cut shots or whatever, but. That was a great technique to use.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, did you guys notice there was some sort of weird, I don't know, like not fishbowl is the wrong term for it, but there was while watching the movie, like when they were panning, it almost looked like there was like a magnified kind of weird distortion.
Yeah, no, it's a fisheye lens.
Fisheye lens, okay.
And it's tough because, sorry, you go, Brandon.
Oh, no, it's just also, it's part of those, the old lenses are very unique. So there's very specific lenses and it's not just like this type of lens. There's like actual lenses that were like being passed around at the time. And like, yeah, like this one they were, actual glass and blown and all of that. So they had their own unique things. Like, for example, I just saw a post, The Rock posted yesterday or 2 days ago. It was him on set for a new movie, and they had like a tiny little red camera on a dolly, and he was like, that lens on the front of that is the same lens that they used to shoot like Ben-Hur.
Fuck.
Like that specific glass, was that lens was, it has a specific distortion and lighting flares and things like that. So it's very much part of that kind of the style and stuff at the time.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I guess that makes sense that he would have to reuse specific equipment pieces. Keep that production cost down so you can make a million movies a year. I get it.
100%.
Well, it helps with the unique look,
Yeah, it definitely
100%.
looks very visually distinct for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Anything else, Chad? Anything you have like burning inside you?
Well, this is kind of cool because Screen Rant a few days ago named Masque of the Red Death the perfect 2020 Halloween movie, which is cool.
Ooh, yeah, well, that makes sense.
And then last year in 2019, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences chose The Masque of the Red Death for the Academy Film Archive. So it's kind of cool that it's being recognized later on.
Yeah, and it just got put on like Shudder. This definitely seems like a movie that like horror nerds have probably loved for like a while, and now it's going to start to get like a bigger recognition. I like that. I like when older films kind of get like this is something like Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome is going to do a great like Blu-ray restoration of in a couple years,
And I mean, it held up. It was entertaining,
It's a tight 90 minutes.
It's a tight 90. I also think there's something about it being, Edgar Allan Poe poem, where it's inspiring in a way. I know we were talking about adaptions last week, or yesterday or whenever that was. We were talking about adaptions, and it was like, this is, a different case of that, obviously. When you're taking short stories and you're putting them into a different medium and things like that, I think that's a very happy medium to what we were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's inspiring.
Yeah,
so
it's a good thank you for bringing it.
Thanks
to
for
our
having
attention,
me,
Chad. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
come back whenever you want, man. We love having you. We love talking to you. We watch everything. We watch classics. We watch stinkers. Like, so anytime there's something going on. So you do. So we both work on Film Review Daily. What's like a movie that's come out this year that you want more people to see?
Driveways came out in May.
Dude, I really want to watch Driveways. I took class with Hannah and Paul, the writers, and that looks like a fucking awesome movie. But yeah, talk about it.
It's just a beautiful film. Brian Dennehy passed away recently, and I think it's really his swan song. He has, I think, another film that hasn't been released yet, but he is so good in it and has this monologue at the end that's just like one of those monologues that every actor wants to get. And it's a really quiet film, but has all of this space in it. And I just love the way it's shot and the story. It's basically this young son and his mom come to this house after his aunt has passed away, and she was a hoarder. So there's this house of all of this stuff. And they're trying to clean out the house and get it ready for sale. And the boy ends up speaking with the neighbor across the driveway and forming a relationship with him. So it's a really interesting older man, younger boy, father-son, mentor relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the mom is played by Hong Chow, who's like blowing up. She was just like in Watchmen last year. She's fucking great too. So I haven't seen the film, but I'm sure she gives a great performance as well. So yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out, man. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
So what we, Chad, we rate our movies on a basis of five stars. If you don't have to, but I would love to. If that's something we'd be into. I'll go first, and I'm going to give it a solid 4, in terms of historical relevance and the craft and things like that. It was solid for sure.
I'm gonna give it a 3. Same type of thing. I definitely enjoyed it. Historic context, fantastic, inspirational, with the being Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, I liked all the lighting and stuff. I just, in the middle for me. But yeah, I'll give it a 3. Solid 3.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm in between you guys. I think it's a 3.5 for me. I love a lot about it, and it's definitely cool. And maybe if I watched it again, I'll like it more. But I, like you were saying, Chat, like Seventh Seal is only a couple years before, and it's Bergman. I can't not think about it. I can't not think about the comparisons. But this is definitely in my Spooktober rotation.
I would put it in a similar place too, 3.5 or 4. It's actually not my favorite in the series. The very first one, The Fall of the House of Usher, is probably my personal favorite.
Cool.
So you should check that one out too.
Definitely, man. All right. Thank you so much. Where can we find you on the socials if we want to?
Yes. Well, I will clue you in on all things Vincent Price. You can find him at Master of Menace, which was his nickname. And he's on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And you can find me at Chad Kennerk. And there's lots of things out there if you're interested in learning more about Vincent Price. He literally did everything. He has a gourmet cookbook. He
hell yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. He wrote a book about American art. I mean, he was such a Renaissance man. So right now, his daughter Victoria is doing this really cool at home with legends series where she's interviewing people like Roger Corman. She had him on recently. So check that out. You can find it on Facebook, Instagram.
Dude, thank you.
Awesome.
And like always, guys, we're at 3M Affairs Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and you find us at Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts and more. Yeah. So thank you, Chad, personally from me. I love seeing you. Love hearing your voice. It's, again, been far too long.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, man. Come back anytime, seriously.
Thank you for having me.
Miss you, brother, and hopefully we get you back on super
I'd love
soon.
it.
All right, guys.
All right, stay safe when you
Yes.
go out and trick or treat, and everybody have a great, awesome, spooky, scary holiday.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.